If you want to add more interest and make your virtual sessions more interesting, here's 2 tips that are going to help you to do exactly that. The first tip is to take a lot of breaks. Don't try to do 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour virtual sessions. You shouldn't do that in a classroom-based in-person setting anyway, but definitely in a virtual session. That attention span to stay focused in on the computer screen, you're not going to be able to go much more than about an hour before a break is needed. Maybe 90 minutes, but an hour is probably the right goal to aim for. Much longer than that, your participants, they're just going to get mentally fried. They're going to zone out. They're going to lose attention. So have a break every hour or so. The second tip to add interest to your virtually delivered sessions is your energy level. You, as the instructor, need to take your energy level even higher when you're delivering training virtually. That 2-dimensional screen is just so flat that it's up to you as the instructor to bring your passion, bring your energy, really be enthusiastic, to take your presentation style even higher, to be more dramatic with your gestures, to be more emphatic with your words. It's up to you to call the energy level of the room even higher. And you're going to have to do that for a more sustained period of time. That's the reason why breaks every hour or so are good, because they're also for you as the instructor, because you got to bring it. You got to really deliver a high energy session to really keep your participants engaged. If you want to improve your virtually delivered training sessions, give your participants something to do. The easiest way to do this is send them some sort of digital asset. That could be a PDF, a worksheet, some sort of check guide that they have to fill out while they're completing the training, something where they have to fill in the blanks, perform an activity, but you can send this to them digitally. They print it out on their end and then follow along during the session. Similarly, you could send them a physical workbook or work guide with the same idea. They have to follow along, etc., etc. Another great way to do this is to give them activities that they need to complete during the session. And again, this gives them something to do. So you share a little bit of information, hit those key need-to-know points, and then give them an exercise to complete, or a problem to solve, or something to calculate. It gets them active, gets them thinking, gets them engaged. Another great way to give your participants something to do is send them some sort of physical thing, some sort of physical item. So for example, if you're training salespeople that sell a tangible item, send them some of those products so that they can touch it, feel it, while you're delivering the training session. So if you want to improve those virtually delivered training sessions, give your participants something to do. If you just have them stare at the screen, they're going to get bored very, very quickly. You're going to lose their attention, and ultimately your session is not going to have an effect. Especially when you're rolling out a new piece of software or demonstrating a new procedure inside existing software, virtually delivered training is commonplace. Unfortunately, it's also very common that it's horrifically boring, ineffective, people don't listen, and then the help desk gets a number of tickets asking the same question over and over again. Here are 2 tips to improve that type of virtual training. The first tip is to utilize a sandbox, a demonstration area, a practice area. In other words, you as the presenter show off some step in the new process or some small piece of the software that's being rolled out. Then you have your participants immediately follow along. In other words, you show them visually, click here, click there, and then they immediately do the same on their end. Click here, click there, click there. That gives them a repetition. It gets them engaged in thinking, and it will quickly reveal who has questions, or maybe even who isn't even logged into the system yet. The second tip is at the end of that session, have an already prepared guide of what you just showed them. The simpler you can make it to have a mind map, a road map. You click here, you click here, you click here, you click here for this new procedure, with screenshots, with where you're clicking circled and arrows pointing to the appropriate button, etc., etc. Make it as simple and easy to follow, but have that roadmap prepared so that at the end of the session, you can immediately send it to them digitally. Then have them walk through that process, read over that mind map, that roadmap, and have them ask questions right away. So again, you get the demonstration piece, you get the active involvement because they're following along in the demo area, the sandbox dummy area. And then you get, at the end of the session, one more repetition where you have them go through the checklist. And then, oh, by the way, the first time they go to do the new process or use the new piece of software, they already have the help guide right there. So it takes a little bit of extra work on the front end to set all this up, to set up the sandbox, the practice example, to make sure that that's going to work for your participants as they follow along, to put together the guide, the help guide afterwards. But investing that time on the front end and then involving your participants during the session is going to get far better engagement. It's going to be far more interesting. And more importantly, most importantly, it's going to be far more effective to get your participants to actually follow the new procedure or utilize the new software. We'll do a webinar. Ask questions of your participants. Certainly you should do this in an in-person setting, but especially when you're delivering virtual sessions, it's so important every few minutes to ask a question that forces your participants to engage. It forces them to apply the information, think about the information, at some level turn their brains from passive to active and be engaged in the session. Now, one danger of this technique is that you get the same participants participating over and over and over again. So if you want to make sure all of your participants stay active, randomly call on different people if you happen to notice the same handful of individuals responding again and again. But ultimately, if you want your participants to stay engaged in your session and make it more interesting, build questions into your delivery. Share some of those key need-to-know points, and then ask questions that cause your participants to apply the information, think about the information, discuss it, etc., etc. Ask those questions every so often, and it's going to make your virtual sessions far more interesting and ultimately more effective.